Now we journey to a city carved not from stone blocks, but directly from the living mountain itself. A place so hidden it was lost for centuries, only to be rediscovered by accident. Welcome to Petra, the rose-red city of Jordan. You approach it through a narrow canyon called the Siq, its walls towering hundreds of feet above you, streaked in layers of crimson and gold. The passage twists and narrows until suddenly the canyon opens, and there it stands. The treasury, a facade so grand, it looks like the gods themselves decided to dabble in architecture. Here's your first major fact. Petra was built by the Nabateans, an Arab people who controlled trade routes across the desert more than 2,000 years ago. They were master merchants, engineers, and artists, and they turned a barren landscape into a thriving metropolis. The second fact, the treasury isn't actually a treasury. Archaeologists now believe it was likely a tomb, possibly for a Nabatean king. Its ornate carvings and columns aren't mere decoration. They're a fusion of Greek, Egyptian, and Mesopotamian influences, a literal meeting point of ancient worlds. And here's your odd, charming tidbit. The treasury's name came from local legend. Bedouins once believed a pharaoh's treasure was hidden inside the urn at the top of the facade. You can still see bullet holes from when treasure hunters shot at it, hoping gold dust might spill out. Spoiler, it didn't. Petra isn't just beautiful, it's impossible. The city's buildings, temples, and tombs were carved into the rose-colored cliffs, not built upon them. Every pillar, every arch was sculpted downward from the rock face. Think about that for a moment. They didn't add stone, they subtracted it. And perhaps more mysterious than its creation is its silence. By the time the Romans arrived, Petra's golden age had already begun to fade. The city fell into decline, swallowed by sand and forgotten by the outside world. For nearly 1,000 years, it slept, preserved by the desert's dry breath. Historians still debate why Petra fell. Was it earthquakes, changing trade routes, or simply time deciding to move on? So here we are, at the quiet edge of history. The world has spun countless times since the first stones were lifted, since hands carved patterns into rock and called them meaning. You close your eyes and picture them all together. The pyramids glowing white under a desert sun, Stonehenge waiting for dawn on the English plain, Angkor sleeping beneath jungle vines, Baalbek's columns shining under the stars, Göbekli Tepe whispering through the dust. Each one a heartbeat, each one a question. We build to remember. We build to belong. We build so that something of us endures when our names have turned to wind. Maybe that's the secret at the core of all these mysteries, that the structures were never meant to be puzzles for us to solve, but lullabies for the earth to keep. The night deepens, the sound fades. You breathe slowly. The hum of history becomes a pulse, then a rhythm, then silence. Let the stories settle in your mind like sand. Let the world grow soft around you. And as the last images of stone and starlight fade from view, remember, the greatest mystery has never been the monuments we built. It's the hearts that dream them into being. Now rest, traveler, The world's ancient wonders can wait until morning. Today, when the moonlight spills over the cliffs, the stone glows like embers. You can almost imagine the old city waking again. The sound of merchants haggling, the scent of incense drifting through carved doorways, the echo of sandals on stone. It's a haunting kind of beauty, the kind that reminds you that even the most solid things, the mountains, the monuments, the civilizations, are only temporary sculptures in the hands of time. And so we move onward again, deeper into the mysteries of human ambition. Ahead lies another wonder, a city built for the stars themselves. The desert winds fade, replaced by thinner air and sharper skies. We're climbing again, higher, colder, closer to the heavens. The ground turns from sand to stone, and the air hums with that rare crystalline stillness you only find where the clouds live. You've arrived at Tiwanaku, an ancient city high in the Bolivian Andes, near the shores of Lake Titicaca. And if Petra was a masterpiece of subtraction, Tiwanaku feels like a whisper from before history even had a voice. Imagine a vast plateau, sun blazing, air thin as paper. In the center rises the gateway of the sun, a monolithic arch carved from a single block of stone. It's decorated with intricate figures, winged beings, geometric patterns, and at the center, a mysterious deity with rays shooting from his head, clutching two staffs. Archaeologists call him the Staff God. To later civilizations, he became Viracocha, the creator of all things. Your first major fact: Tiwanaku was once the capital of a mighty pre-Incan empire, thriving from around 500 to 1000 CE. Its builders engineered canals, agricultural terraces, and stone structures aligned so precisely with celestial events that they functioned like a calendar written in rock. The second fact: the stones used to build Tiwanaku's temples came from quarries miles away, some weighing up to 100 tons. They were somehow transported across uneven terrain. Without the wheel, not even the Incas could later explain how. Historians still debate whether Tiwanaku was purely a ceremonial site or a true city. The evidence blurs the line. It feels less like a place people lived and more like a place where they came to remember what living meant. And here's your curious tidbit. One stone sculpture found here depicts what looks remarkably like a human wearing a modern diving helmet. Scholars call it coincidence. Others, predictably, call it proof of time travelers. Stand here long enough and you'll understand why such theories take root. Tiwanaku feels unearthly. The air seems thinner than reality itself. The horizon stretches endlessly, and the sky feels so close you could scrape your fingers against the stars. When the sun sets, the gateway glows like molten bronze. The wind sighs across the plateau, carrying the voices of a civilization that vanished without a trace. And as darkness falls, our path shifts once more from mountain to jungle, from memory to myth. It's strange how civilizations rise where they shouldn't, at the edge of deserts, atop cliffs, or deep in forests that seem intent on swallowing them whole. And perhaps no mystery captures that better than the Great Zimbabwe in southern Africa. Picture rolling green hills and granite outcrops shimmering in afternoon light. Atop one of those hills stands a stone fortress, not built with mortar, but with perfect precision, each rock laid to balance the next, forming massive circular walls that have stood for nearly 1,000 years. This is Great Zimbabwe, the heart of a medieval African kingdom that once ruled vast trade routes stretching from the interior to the Indian Ocean. It was a place of gold, cattle, and diplomacy, a reminder that advanced civilizations didn't just bloom along the Nile or the Tigris, but across the whole world. Here's your first major fact. Great Zimbabwe was built by the Shona people between the 11th and 15th centuries CE. Its ruins cover more than 700 hectares, with the largest structure, the Great Enclosure, featuring walls over 30 feet high and 15 feet thick. The second fact, the word Zimbabwe itself comes from Zimba, Da Mobe, meaning houses of stone. The name of an entire modern nation is rooted in these walls, and yet, for centuries, outsiders refused to believe Africans had built it. Early European explorers insisted it must have been constructed by Phoenicians, Arabs, or even the Queen of Sheba. The truth was too inconvenient that Africans had built something monumental, mathematical, and magnificent on their own. Historians still debate the exact purpose of Great Zimbabwe. Was it a royal citadel, a religious sanctuary, or a fortified trade center? Perhaps all three. And here's your lesser-known detail. Inside the ruins, archaeologists discovered soapstone carvings of birds perched on pedestals, half eagle, half human figures. They're believed to have symbolized the link between the spiritual and physical worlds. Today, those same birds appear on Zimbabwe's national flag, a quiet continuity of identity carved in stone. Walk among the ruins, and you can still feel the hum of life that once filled this place, the laughter of merchants, the rhythm of drums echoing through valleys, the flicker of firelight reflecting off gold jewelry. The wind that passes through these walls seems to carry pride. It whispers, "We were here too." And when the night deepens and the moon climbs high over the acacia trees, Great Zimbabwe stands silent and unbowed, a monument not to mystery but to mastery denied and finally reclaimed. Ahead, our path bends east, where another mystery rises from the red sands of legend, one built for eternity, yet lost for centuries beneath it. The African night lingers like velvet, thick and star-laden, but soon the air begins to dry and shimmer. You smell dust, iron, and wind. Then the dunes appear, rolling like flouncing waves. The Sahara opens before you, vast and unending. Somewhere near its edge, half buried beneath centuries of shifting sand, lies the lost city of Abar, called by ancient Arab poets the Atlantis of the sands. Ubar's story lives between myth and map. For thousands of years, travelers spoke of it in hushed tones, a city of immense wealth built on the trade of frankincense, a city that angered God and was swallowed whole by the desert. For centuries, no one knew if it had truly existed. Then, in the 1990s, satellite images revealed an ancient trail of caravan routes converging on one site deep in Oman's empty quarter. Excavations unearthed the ruins of a fortress that had collapsed into a giant sinkhole. Its stone towers crumbled inward as though pulled into the earth itself. Your first major fact: archaeologists identified the site as Giza, likely the ancient hub of Yuba, dating back to at least 2800 BCE. It was a vital stop on the incense trade route, linking Arabia to Egypt, Mesopotamia, and beyond. The second fact: historical texts like the Quran and Greek writings describe a wealthy kingdom named Iram of the Pillars, ruled by proud kings who defied the divine and whose punishment was to be erased. Whether Ubar and Iram were the same place remains uncertain, but the legend's echo fits the ruins perfectly. And here's your obscure tidbit: archaeologists found shards of pottery from as far away as Rome and India in Ubar's ruins, a reminder that even the most remote deserts were once crossroads of the world. Historians still debate how Ubar truly fell. Did the water supply collapse? Did overuse of trade routes dry up its economy? Or, as the desert dwellers say, did the sands themselves grow jealous of its glory? You can almost picture it, a bustling oasis, its towers gleaming white under the desert sun, traders leading camels heavy with resin and gold, a tremor, a shudder, the ground giving way, the city groaning, folding, swallowed by the earth as its people screamed and vanished beneath the dunes. Now, only the wind tells the story, brushing over the half-buried stones like a whisper of warning. Nothing built on pride lasts forever. The wind carries you onward, across sands that turn red, then black, then pale again, and on the far horizon, something gleams, not gold, not marble, ice. The landscape shifts once more. In that dreamlike way of time, travel where one breath changes continents. The warmth drains from the air, replaced by a biting chill that smells of salt and snow. You're standing on the frozen plains of Greenland, or perhaps Antarctica. No one can ever quite agree where the first whispers began. Beneath your boots, deep under the ice, lies one of the newest and strangest mysteries of all: the buried structures beneath the ice sheets. In 2016, satellite imagery revealed geometric patterns and dome-like anomalies under miles of ice, perfectly circular shapes that didn't seem natural. Some dismissed them as radar glitches or geological formations. Others whispered of something far older. The first major fact: beneath Greenland's Hiawatha Glacier, scientists discovered a crater over 19 miles wide, created, they believe, by a massive meteor impact roughly 12,000 years ago. The explosion would have melted ice, shifted weather, and perhaps even contributed to the mysterious end of the last ice age. The second fact: core samples from both poles reveal signs of microbial life and strange magnetic materials, proof that even the coldest, loneliest corners of Earth may not be as lifeless as they seem. And then comes your curious tidbit. In the 20th century, explorers reported glimpses of what appeared to be walls and pillars beneath the ice near Antarctica's Queen Maud Land. Decades later, conspiracy theorists dubbed it the site of a lost civilization. some even suggesting remnants of Atlantis itself. Historians and geologists still debate whether these patterns are ancient structures, natural formations, or tricks of technology. The mystery remains buried, literally, beneath miles of fronts in time. Still, as you stand here, the silence feels unnatural. The ice cracks somewhere in the distance, echoing like thunder through a cathedral. The aurora unfurls overhead in slow motion, green and violet veils rippling across the sky. It's easy to imagine what might sleep beneath all that ice. A forgotten city, a library of stone, or maybe nothing but frozen echoes of human imagination. Our tendency to fill the void with myth because we can't bear the idea that the world might hold places utterly indifferent to us. You exhale, the cold fogs your breath, the world hums quietly, untouched, and as you turn away from the polar winds, your path leads south toward warmth again, and another wonder built not for gods or kings, but for mathematics itself. From the frozen silence of the poles, we drift now towards something entirely different, a city of logic, geometry, and strange precision, where mathematics and mysticism once held hands. The sun glows soft over the Egyptian desert again, but not at Giza this time. No, we're heading deeper inland to a place that was once a university, an observatory, and a temple all at once. Welcome to the Library of Alexandria, or what remains of it, which is mostly memory. Now, you might be thinking, wait, isn't that a library, not a structure of stone? True, but this was no mere building. It was one of the most ambitious constructions of the human mind, a monument to curiosity itself. Picture it, a sprawling complex of marble halls and palm-shaded courtyards by the sea, scholars in flowing robes murmuring in dozens of languages, the air thick with ink, scrolls, and debate, the walls filled with texts on astronomy, philosophy, mathematics, medicine, knowledge gathered from every known civilization. Your first major fact: the library was founded around 283 BCV by Ptolemy I, one of Alexander the Great's generals. Under his successors, especially Ptolemy II, it became the largest repository of knowledge in the ancient world. The second fact: ships docking at the nearby harbour were searched, and any scrolls found aboard were seized, copied, and added to the library shelves. The originals were returned. Sometimes Alexandria wasn't just reading the world's wisdom, it was absorbing it. And here's your obscure tidbit. Rumor has it the library housed a mysterious room of secrets, a section accessible only to royal scholars, containing texts on alchemy, immortality, and possibly blueprints for technologies lost to time. Historians still debate whether this room ever truly existed, or whether it was simply an ancient metaphor for the limits of human knowledge. But the true mystery of Alexandria isn't how it lived, it's how it died. Some say Julius Caesar's soldiers set it aflame in 48 BCE, when they torched enemy ships, and the fire spread to the city's docks. Others claim it fell centuries later, destroyed by religious or political zeal. Perhaps it burned several times, death by erosion, not explosion. Historians still debate which story is true. What we know for certain is that millions of scrolls were lost, works by thinkers whose names we may never know, their ideas gone like smoke on the sea breeze. If the pyramids were built to house kings, the Library of Alexandria was built to house their dreams. And when it fell, the world dimmed just a little. You can almost hear it, can't you? The soft murmur of scholars beneath lamplight, the rustle of papyrus, the waves whispering outside. Then a spark, a flicker, the beginning of an end. Knowledge, it seems, burns beautifully, and as the embers fade, we step east again toward a city that never truly died, because it was carved not only into stone, but into story. The light changes to something golden and ancient. The air smells of spice and incense. You hear the faint clang of hammer on bronze, the rhythmic call of prayer echoing through domes and towers. Welcome to Jerusalem, a city so layered with history that every stone you touch has been touched by faith, war, and wonder. Here, sacred architecture isn't just mysterious, it's charged, alive, trembling under the weight of human devotion. Let's start with one structure that stands quietly among them all, the Dome of the Rock. Its golden roof gleams like a sunrise. Its tiles shimmer with blues that seem borrowed from the sky itself. Your first major fact, built in 6091 CE by the Umayyad Caliph Abd al-Malik, the Dome of the Rock is one of the oldest surviving Islamic monuments. It marks the place where, according to tradition, the Prophet Muhammad ascended to heaven during his night journey. The second fact, beneath the dome lies a rock venerated by Jews, Christians, and Muslims alike. For Jews, it's the site where Abraham prepared to sacrifice Isaac. For Christians, it symbolizes the foundation stone of creation. For Muslims, it's the point from which the Prophet rose to the divine. That single rock holds more prayers, tears, and debates than perhaps any other object on earth. And here's your strange but true tidbit. The geometric patterns covering the dome aren't just decorative. They follow precise mathematical ratios that create harmonic balance, almost like visual music. Scholars who've studied its layout say the building's proportions mirror ancient cosmological concepts of heaven and earth. Historians still debate how much of its design was symbolic versus aesthetic, but standing beneath it, looking up into that vast golden curve, it doesn't matter. You feel it, a kind of sacred geometry that doesn't need explaining. Jerusalem's mystery isn't in its construction, it's in its endurance. Empires rose and fell here. Temples were built, burned, rebuilt, conquered, and consecrated again. And yet the city remains. It endures like a heartbeat, steady and eternal. At night, when the streets quiet and the desert wind moves through the alleys, the stones seem to exhale. Every faith that ever walked here still lingers in the air. Perhaps that's the secret of the world's most mysterious structures. They don't just survive time, they absorb it. And beyond Jerusalem, on the far edge of the known world, lies one last marvel, carved not for gods, not for kings, but for the sky itself. The wind shifts once more, carrying the scent of salt and cedar. The stars overhead grow sharper, brighter, until they seem almost close enough to touch. You find yourself standing at the edge of a plateau under a canopy of ancient constellations. This is the high desert of Lebanon, and before you lies one of humanity's strangest puzzles in stone, the temples of Baalbek. Even by ancient standards, Baalbek is absurd. Massive doesn't begin to describe it. At its heart stands the Temple of Jupiter, once among the largest sanctuaries of the Roman world. Its surviving columns rise nearly 20 stories tall, like fingers of a god Francine mid-reach. But the mystery isn't the temple's design, it's its foundation. Your first major fact: the platform beneath Baalbek's temples is made of some of the largest cut stones on Earth. The biggest, known as the Stone of the Pregnant Woman, weighs an estimated 1,000 tons, about the same as 3 Boeing 747s. It's carved with such smooth precision that even today a sheet of paper couldn't slip between its joints. The second fact: Roman engineers built much of the visible temple around the 1st century CE, but evidence suggests that parts of the foundation may be far older, predating Rome entirely. Who placed those original stones and how remains a mystery. Historians still debate whether the Romans inherited an earlier site or engineered the impossible themselves. Theories range from ancient pulley systems to the more imaginative whispers of forgotten technology. And here's your obscure tidbit. One local legend claims the giants who survived Noah's flood built Baalbek as a refuge. Another insists that King Solomon ordered its construction using enslaved jinn, spirits made of smokeless fire, to house his treasures. Standing at the base of those columns, dwarfed by their impossible height, the air hums faintly. The stone feels warm, almost alive. You begin to understand why myths clung to this place like ivy. Rationality feels small here. When dusk falls, the ruins turn golden, then black, their outlines sharp against the starlit sky. The same stars the builders watched still hang above, silent and patient, as if they too are waiting for an answer. You take one last look at the glowing stones and start walking east toward the rising moon and the faint promise of something far older still. You travel not just across distance now, but across the line between history and rumor into a time before even the oldest myths had names. The jungle grows thicker, the air wetter, the night alive with unseen eyes. Somewhere beneath the vines and the hum of insects lies a city that should not exist, and yet perhaps once did. They call it the City of the Monkey God, or La Ciudad Blanca, the White City, hidden deep in the Mosquitia rainforest of Honduras. It was long dismissed as legend, a ghost story whispered by explorers and local tribes alike. For centuries, it was said to be a city of immense beauty, guarded by curses and swallowed by nature. Those who searched for it never returned, or came back raving about golden idols and strange animal statues glimpsed in the mist. Then, in 2015, aerial laser scanning pierced the jungle canopy and revealed the outlines of massive earthen pyramids, plazas and causeways buried under centuries of growth. Here's your first major fact. Archaeologists confirmed that the site dated back at least 1,000 years, built by a previously unknown culture, distinct from the Maya. It was a complex society that flourished and then vanished, leaving almost nothing but whispers behind. Your second fact: dozens of stone sculptures were found scattered across the forest floor, depicting animals, gods, and hybrid creatures. One even shows a half-human, half-monkey figure, perhaps a deity, perhaps a warning. And your strange little tidbit: after the excavation, several team members contracted a rare parasitic disease from the jungle, leishmaniasis, a painful reminder that nature never forgets who trespasses her secrets. Historians still debate the true identity of the city. Some believe it was part of a vast trade network that collapsed under drought or war. Others think it was deliberately abandoned, a civilization that chose silence over survival. But when you stand among those ruins, massive mounds covered in vines, carved stones peeking from beneath roots, it's easy to believe in the legend. The jungle breathes heavily, as if watching. The air feels ancient, damp, and almost sentient. The city of the monkey god hums softly beneath the soil, its secrets guarded by moss and moonlight. You step back into the shadows, heart slow, mind heavy with questions, and as the mist thickens, it feels as though every structure we visited, every stone, every wall, has been whispering the same truth all along. Mystery isn't meant to be solved, it's meant to be remembered. We have one last place to go, a structure so strange that even in an age of satellites, it refuses to make sense. You find yourself beneath an open sky so vast and dark it feels almost infinite. The wind hums with low, constant tones, carrying the scent of salt and minerals, and before you stretches a flat, gleaming expanse that looks less like Earth and more like the floor of the heavens. This is the Sala de Uyuni in Bolivia, the world's largest salt flat, but hidden beneath its mirror-like surface. Scientists and dreamers alike whisper about something deeper, a geometric lattice of ancient stone, perhaps natural, perhaps not. For centuries, the local Aymara people spoke of spirits who shaped the landscape long before humans, crafting the plains from their tears. To the outside world, it's simply a wonder of geology. But within this endless horizon of white, researchers have found oddities: symmetrical stone mounds, faintly aligned lines, and circular patterns visible only from the air, patterns eerily reminiscent of the Nazca geoglyphs thousands of miles away. Your first major fact: the Sala de Uyuni was once part of a prehistoric lake that evaporated over 10,000 years ago, leaving behind a crust of pure salt over 4,000 square miles wide. Its surface is so perfectly flat that NASA uses it to calibrate satellites. The second fact: beneath the salt lies one of the world's largest reserves of lithium, modern civilization's white gold. In a strange twist, the ancient and the futuristic coexist here, layered like sediment. And here's your curious tidbit. Locals say that when lightning strikes the flats during storms, it sometimes reveals the city beneath the salt, a flicker of glowing structures deep below, vanishing as quickly as they appear. Scientists, ever pragmatic, attribute the glow to reflections or mineral reactions, but people who've seen it up close speak of towers and walls that shimmer for just a heartbeat before dissolving again. Historians and geologists still debate whether these patterns and formations are purely natural or the remnants of something more deliberate, a settlement erased by time, its memory preserved only in the mineral mirror of the earth. Stand here long enough, and your sense of direction dissolves. The salt glows faintly in the moonlight, the sky doubling below you, until you can't tell which way is up. You are floating, suspended between two infinities, reflected endlessly in silence. The earth beneath you hums like a sleeping giant. Maybe it's just the wind, maybe not. You begin to understand, finally, that the world's greatest mysteries aren't hidden. They're waiting in plain sight, disguised as landscape, and as dawn begins to break, washing gold across the horizon, we turn at last to our final stop, the place where myth, stone, and the stars themselves converge. It begins quietly, a low hum in the back of your thoughts, the sound of water trickling through desert rock, the first hints of morning painting the sand pink. We've arrived where history folds in on itself. Göbekli Tepe, in southeastern Turkey, the oldest known monumental structure on Earth. It doesn't look like much at first glance, just circles of ancient stone pillars, half buried in dust. But these pillars are older than the pyramids, older than Stonehenge. So old, in fact, that they rewrite what we thought we knew about civilization. Here's your first major fact. Göbekli Tepe dates back to around 9600 BCE, built more than 11,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers who, supposedly, didn't yet know how to farm. Your second fact. The site contains dozens of T-shaped limestone pillars arranged in concentric circles, each carved with reliefs of animals: foxes, vultures, lions, snakes, some in vivid detail, others abstract. The carvings suggest not just art, but mythology, ritual, and memory. Archaeologists say it's the world's first temple, a place where humanity's desire for meaning came before even cities or crops. Before we built homes, we built stories. And your obscure tidbit, the site was deliberately buried around 8000 BCE. Someone, perhaps the very people who built it, covered the temples with earth and stone, preserving them for millennia. Historians still debate why. Was it a farewell, a sacrifice, or a message to the future? When the sun rises over Göbekli Tepe, the light cuts through the dust and lands on the carved animals. The air feels ancient and electric at once. You can sense that something larger than memory happened here, something that still vibrates faintly in our bones. Standing among those pillars, you feel the echo of every other structure we visited. The pyramids, the temples, the libraries, the towers of stone swallowed by sea and sand. They are all part of the same sentence humanity has been trying to finish for 12,000 years. We built these things not because we understood the world, but because we didn't. Because mystery was not something to fear, it was something to build for. Historians still debate what Göbekli Tepe truly was: a temple, a meeting ground, a monument to gods, or to the birth of human imagination. No one knows. And maybe that's the point. Now the wind grows softer, the desert warms, a falcon wheels in the sky, its shadow sliding across the stones. Everything you've seen, the faces, the ruins, the lights, begins to fade like the last dream before waking. We're going to wander through the world's mysterious historical structures, those ancient monuments that defy logic, time, and sometimes gravity itself. The places that make historians tilt their heads, architects bite their pencils, and archaeologists quietly mutter, "How on earth?" Our story doesn't begin with blueprints or construction crews. It begins with wonder, the same quiet awe humans have always felt standing before something that shouldn't exist, but somehow does. But before you nod off, just remember, if you like what you hear, don't forget to gently tap that like button and subscribe for more historical lullabies. And do drop a comment, letting me know where you're listening from and what time it is. It's a little tradition I'm starting tonight. Now, let's ease into tonight's journey. Imagine yourself standing in the early dawn, the horizon painted in sleepy pinks and soft golds. You're somewhere in the desert, maybe Egypt, maybe Peru. You can't quite tell yet. The air is still cool, the wind barely whispering. Ahead of you, ancient stones rise, impossibly massive, their shadows stretching toward you like the fingers of time itself. That sense of strangeness isn't just the product of their size or age. It's the feeling of being outsmarted by ghosts. You're looking at something built by people who lived before paper, before compasses, before cranes, and yet it's still here, unmoving, while entire empires have turned to dust around it. The first stop on our sleepy architectural tour, the Great Pyramid of Giza, it's famous. Yes, it's touristy, but it also remains the best unsolved riddle in the real world. Built more than 4,000 years ago, it was the tallest man-made structure on Earth for nearly 4 millennia. That's longer than the time between the invention of writing and the first moon landing. It's so precisely aligned with true north that modern satellites still can't find an error larger than a few arc minutes. It's almost as if the builders had GPS or a very patient intern with a really long piece of string. And here's your first obscure fact of the night. When ancient travelers approached the pyramids, they didn't see the sandy yellow blocks we see today. Those rough stones were once covered in polished white limestone, so bright it reflected sunlight like a mirror. The whole thing shimmered, literally, across the desert. To the ancient eye, it must have looked less like a tomb and more like a frosty beam of sunlight rising from the earth itself. Historians still debate whether the pyramid's near-perfect alignment was achieved by tracking the stars, by observing shadows, or by pure stubborn luck. Whatever the answer, it makes you realize human ambition isn't new. It just used to wear linen instead of denim. Now, picture the scene again. The pyramid stands against a sunset. Camels grunt softly nearby. A few workers, their names long forgotten, carry stones, muttering about wages and blisters. The pharaoh's overseers are shouting something about perfection and eternity. The sand hums in the wind, the same way it has for thousands of years. You take a slow breath. The desert air tastes faintly of dust and time. Somewhere, a falcon circles lazily overhead. Everything feels suspended, an eternal pause between what was built, what was lost, and what remains. When you finally look away, the next mystery calls. If you travel far enough from Egypt, through waves of shifting sand, across restless seas, and into the green mist of Europe, you'll find another enigma of stone waiting for you. Stonehenge. It doesn't rise as high as the pyramids. It doesn't gleam or boast. It simply sits there, ancient, quiet, and slightly smug, like a retired philosopher who's tired of explaining himself. Each stone is a giant slab, some weighing more than 25 tons, arranged in perfect circles on the grassy plains of Salisbury, England. No cranes, no iron tools, and definitely no forklifts. Yet, there it is, still standing after 4,000 years of rain, frost, sheep, and human curiosity. We know this. It was built in stages over centuries. The smaller bluestones came from over 150 miles away in Wales. Somehow, without roads or wheels, they were dragged, floated, or persuaded across rivers and hills. Archaeologists proposed methods involving wooden rollers, sledges, or rafts. Personally, I suspect a lot of creative swearing. Every culture has its monument to mystery, but Stonehenge feels especially personal. It's not just architecture. It's an ancient to-do list written in stone. Historians have guessed everything, that it was a temple to the sun, a burial ground, a giant calendar, or perhaps an alien landing pad. Though if extraterrestrials did stop by, their sense of landscaping was surprisingly minimalist. Two major facts we can confirm. First, its alignment with the midsummer sunrise and midwinter sunset is astonishing precise. On the solstice, sunlight slices cleanly through the central stones, as if the heavens themselves approved the design. Second, evidence of cremated remains beneath some stones suggests that Stonehenge served as a ceremonial burial site long before it became a tourist magnet for druid cosplay and yoga selfies. And here's a curious tidbit. Archaeologists have found human bones that appear to have been deliberately transported to the site from other regions, almost as if people wanted to be buried near Stonehenge's mysterious power. Or maybe they just liked the view. Still, no one can fully agree on why it was built or how its builders kept such perfect geometry using only antler picks and rope. Historians still debate whether it was a single culture's magnum opus or a shared construction project between neighboring tribes who briefly decided not to fight each other. If the pyramids were shouts of glory, Stonehenge is a whisper, a soft reminder that ancient people looked at the stars too and wondered where they fit in the pattern. Imagine the slow rhythm of that world, the murmur of wind across the plain, the crunch of grass underfoot, the smell of fires burning in distant huts. A small group gathers around the circle at dusk. They tilt their faces toward the fading sun. No one speaks. They don't need to. The stones say enough. It's easy to romanticize the past, but moments like this make you realize that mystery isn't something we lost. It's something we've always carried. Tonight, Stonehenge still stands in the dark English countryside. The same stars those builders watched still shine above it. And somewhere between the pyramids and those lonely stones, humanity learned that sometimes the best monuments aren't built to last forever. They're built to make us ask why. The next structure in our journey waits quietly, half forgotten, hidden behind centuries of jungle vines. But that story will reach it soon enough. By now, you've likely noticed something about these old stones. They don't just stand still, they breathe, they hum. They pull at the imagination like magnets for mystery. And if we follow that magnetic tug far enough, through warm seas and green canopies, we find ourselves standing before one of the most mesmerizing enigmas of all, the temples of Angkor. The air here is heavy and rich, the kind that seems to shimmer, full of unseen wings and distant drumming. The smell of earth after rain, the murmur of leaves, the occasional croak of a hidden frog, and somewhere the echo of footsteps on ancient stone. This is Angkor Wat in Cambodia, once the crown jewel of the Khmer Empire. It's not just one temple, of course, but a sprawling complex so vast that even satellites have trouble capturing its full scope. It stretches across forests and moats, reflecting pools and ruined towers. At its height, Angkor was a city larger than medieval Paris or London, pulsing with life, monks chanting, artisans carving, elephants dragging stone blocks. Beneath the unrelenting sun, the temple itself was dedicated to Vishnu, though later it became a Buddhist sanctuary. Today, it sits between worlds, a blend of gods, empires, and time. Here's one of those major historical facts that makes your head tilt. Angkor Wat was built in the early 12th century by King Suryavarman II, using sandstone blocks that had to be transported miles from nearby quarries. Each block, thousands upon thousands of them, was carefully fitted, carved, and balanced into harmony, forming an architectural hymn to both precision and devotion. The second fact, equally astonishing, the temple's layout mirrors the movement of the cosmos. Its towers represent the peaks of Mount Meru, the mythical home of the gods. Its outer walls align with the equinox. In other words, it wasn't just built, it was orchestrated. But there's an obscure cultural tidbit buried in the quiet corners of Angkor. Carved into one of its walls is an image that looks uncannily like a stegosaurus. Yes, the dinosaur. Historians still debate whether it's coincidence, symbolic art, or simply an overgrown leaf mistaken for prehistoric armor. Whatever it is, the carving has become the internet's favorite archaeological conspiracy theory. Proof, some say, that ancient people knew more than we give them credit for. Standing there at dusk, surrounded by crumbling towers and strangler figs winding through stone, you can't help but feel small. The light catches on carvings of dancers seen mid-motion. The reflection of the towers glows in still water. A saffron-robed monk passes silently by. Angkor whispers of grandeur and collapse, of beauty built to last, yet consumed by jungle, of humanity's endless cycle. Build, forget, rediscover. Historians still debate what caused its fall. Some blame drought, others shifting trade routes. Some even whisper of divine punishment. But the truth, as always, is probably a combination of human pride and nature's quiet persistence. If you listen closely though, the stones still hum with memory. You can almost hear the footsteps of the builders, the faint murmur of prayers echoing across the centuries. So, as the night deepens and the crickets begin their chorus, we leave Angkor's glowing towers behind and follow the thread of mystery across the ocean toward a place of giants. You wake figuratively, not literally, to the sound of waves and wind. The sun is setting over a lonely island in the Pacific Ocean, and the air carries the tang of salt and volcanic rock. Ahead of you, a row of immense stone faces stare into the horizon. Welcome to Easter Island, or as its inhabitants once called it, Rapa Nui. If the pyramids make you marvel and Stonehenge makes you wonder, the statues of Easter Island make you question sanity. Each colossal figure, called a moai, can weigh up to 80 tons, carved from volcanic rock using nothing more advanced than chisels made of harder stone. There are nearly 900 of them scattered across the island. Some stand proudly along the coast, others lie half buried in grassy slopes, as if they grew weary of standing and decided to nap. Their faces are long, solemn, and strangely peaceful, like watchmen keeping vigil over a forgotten civilization. The first major fact: archaeologists believe the moai were built between 1100 and 1600 CE, representing the ancestors of the island's Polynesian people. They weren't gods or idols, but memorials, stone portraits meant to capture the spirits of revered chiefs and elders. The second fact: though the moai appear to face outward toward the sea, most actually face inward toward the villages. They weren't guarding the island from the world, but protecting the people from within. And now for one of those odd cultural details that feels almost too poetic to be true. The statues were walked into place. Yes, walked. According to oral tradition, the islanders used ropes and rhythm to rock each massive statue side to side, inching it forward like a waddling giant. When archaeologists finally tested the method, it worked. So, the ancient Rapa Nui weren't just master builders, they were patient, musical engineers. Still, the mystery of Easter Island lingers like the echo of a drumbeat. How did a small community on a remote island manage to carve and move such giants? And perhaps the most haunting question: why did they stop? Historians still debate what caused the island's collapse. Some point to deforestation, others to overpopulation or internal conflict. But the image that remains is almost mythic: a society that built monuments to their ancestors only to exhaust the very land that sustained them. If you listen closely, the wind sounds like chanting, soft, rhythmic, mournful, the kind of sound that makes you question what progress really means. As twilight falls, the statues' silhouettes stretch long and dark against the ocean. You can almost feel their eyes following the horizon, waiting for something or someone that never returns. In that fading light, you realize something. Every mysterious structure tells the same story in a different language. Humanity, forever reaching upward, forever haunted by the silence of its own monuments. And somewhere out there, beneath jungle leaves or deep beneath the waves, are more waiting to be found. But those are those will come next. Morning seeps in, pale and gold. The wind smells of sea salt and stone dust, and for a moment, you're unsure where you've drifted next. There's a hush, like the world is holding its breath. Then you hear it, the slow, rhythmic crash of waves against cliffs and the faint rustle of palm trees in the breeze. You've arrived at Nan Madol, a city built on the water. Off the coast of Pompeii, in Micronesia, the ruins of this strange and silent metropolis. Hundreds of small artificial islands connected by canals, sometimes called the Venice of the Pacific. But unlike Venice, Nan Madol wasn't made of marble. It was built from massive basalt stones, some weighing 50 tons, stacked and interlocked like black coral bones. No one's sure how these stones got there. No beasts of burden, no pulleys, no cranes. Just coral reef, volcanic rock, and human hands. The first major fact: historians estimate Nan Madol was built around the 8th or 9th century CE and served as the ceremonial and political seat of the Sogdian dynasty. This was a civilization that ruled the islands long before European explorers knew the Pacific even existed. The second fact: Nan Madol is one of the only ancient cities ever constructed entirely on water. Its channels once teemed with canoes, priests, and couriers moving between temples and dwellings under the glow of torches and starlight reflected in the dark water. The island's oral traditions whisper of sorcery. The founders, the Sodiler rulers, were said to have used supernatural powers to levitate the stones into place. One tale claims that two brothers, half men, half gods, summoned dragons or spirits to lift the blocks through the air. And here's your obscure cultural tidbit: the basalt logs used in construction are shaped so precisely that they resemble giant bundles of firewood stacked by some cosmic mason. When you see them up close, it's hard to tell if they were cut by hand or melted into form by something far stranger. Historians still debate whether Nan Madol's architecture was meant for defense, religion, or ritual isolation. But everyone agrees on one thing: it's eerie. Walk through its ruins at dusk, and you'll feel the weight of silence pressing on you. The stone walls glisten with moss. The canals glow faintly with the reflection of the moon. Crabs scuttle between fallen pillars. Somewhere in the mangroves, a heron cries out, and then nothing. Just the lapping of water and the hum of a civilization swallowed by the sea. The people of Pompeii say the site is haunted. They call it a place of spirits, where the old kings still walk the waters at night. Even today, locals avoid sleeping there, and maybe as you stand there, you start to understand why. Because Nan Madol doesn't just feel abandoned, it feels watchful. Now, let's drift west through humid air and the sound of insects to the dense jungles of South America, where the city of Machu Picchu rests like a dream made of stone. High in the Andes, perched nearly 8,000 feet above sea level, Machu Picchu gazes down. On the Urubamba River, clouds move like waves below, curling around cliffs and terraces. The air is thin, clean, and sharp like the edge of time itself. Here's one of those facts that makes you stop and squint at human determination. Machu Picchu was built in the 15th century by the Inca Empire, likely under the rule of Pachacuti, an emperor whose name literally means earth shaker, and he earned it. The entire site, stone walls, temples, homes, and farms, was carved directly into the mountain's spine, fitted so perfectly that you could slip a credit card between the stones and it wouldn't go through. The second major fact, Machu Picchu survived earthquakes that leveled cities around it. The Incas used a technique called ashlar masonry. No mortar, just precisely cut stones that interlock like puzzle pieces. When the earth trembles, the stones simply dance and settle back into place. But the real magic of Machu Picchu isn't in the engineering, it's in the feeling. Walk its terraces at sunrise, and you feel like you're wandering through a painting that somehow forgot to dry. The stones glow amber, the clouds spill between the peaks like milk, and the silence is so deep it feels alive. Historians still debate what Machu Picchu truly was. Some believe it was a royal retreat, a place where emperors could escape the bustle of Cusco. Others think it was a sacred religious site, a celestial observatory aligned with the solstices. Still others say it was both, a palace built halfway between earth and heaven. And here's your strange, wonderful tidbit. Llamas and alpacas roam the ruins freely today, descendants of the same creatures that once carried goods up these impossible slopes. They've become the accidental caretakers of history, standing in the fog like Shaggy and impressed archaeologists. But Machu Picchu's mystery isn't just about what it was. It's about what it wasn't meant to be seen again. When the Spanish conquered the Inca Empire, they never found it. The jungle swallowed it whole, hiding it from the world for nearly 400 years. It wasn't until 1911 that an explorer named Hiram Bingham stumbled upon it, guided by local farmers who knew of its existence all along. So, there it sat today, quietly, patiently, waiting to be remembered. Standing there now, watching the clouds drift by, you can feel the heartbeat of something larger than civilization. Maybe it's the pulse of the mountains, or maybe it's the echo of every hand that placed a stone. Either way, Machu Picchu feels like a memory the earth itself refused to forget. And as the mist closes in again, the city fades, not gone, just dreaming. Our next step will take us deeper into myth, where the lines between stone and sky blur completely. But for now, let's rest here in the quiet air of the Andes and let the stones hum their ancient lullaby. Night settles gently over the Andes as we drift onward, the stars twinkling like scattered embers in an ink-dark sky. The air grows cooler, thinner, and quieter until, like a change in the dream, the mountains give way to desert. Endless sand, endless horizon, endless silence. This is where we find the Nazca lines, etched across the southern plains of Peru. If Machu Picchu whispers its mystery to those who climb, the Nazca lines shout theirs to the heavens. Imagine walking across a vast, sunburned plateau. The ground beneath your feet looks ordinary. Dust, rock, heat waves. But climb a nearby hill or fly above, and the land itself transforms. Beneath you, enormous geoglyphs stretch across the desert. A hummingbird, a spider, a monkey, even a figure scholars call the astronaut. Some of these drawings span hundreds of feet, so large that you can only see their shape from the air. Yet they were carved between 500 BCE and 500 C, long before airplanes, long before satellites, even before compasses. Here's your first major fact. The Nazca people created these figures by removing the dark sunburnt stones of the desert surface, exposing the lighter sand beneath. Because the region rarely sees rain or wind, these designs have remained nearly untouched for over 2 millennia. The second fact, modern researchers believe the lines may have been used as ritual pathways or even as a calendar connected to celestial events. Some align perfectly with solstices and star constellations. And now, your strange tidbit. One of the less famous geoglyphs, shaped like a pair of hands, has only 9 fingers. Some claim this is symbolic. Others whisper that it depicts visitors not of this world. Historians still debate the true purpose of the Nazca lines. Were they messages to the gods? Astronomical markers? Or, as some of the more excitable theorists suggest, an ancient runway for celestial visitors? You can almost picture it. The desert glowing under moonlight, priests walking barefoot across sacred lines, chanting prayers into the open sky. The air would have been still, heavy, waiting for something divine to answer. Even now, standing in that same emptiness, you can feel the weight of intention, the sense that every line was drawn for a reason, even if we've long forgotten what it was. And perhaps that's the true gift of these ancient mysteries. They remind us how small our certainty really is. As the desert fades behind us, the hum of the past shifts again, this time toward the rhythm of drums and firelight. Follow that sound, and you'll find yourself in the heart of Mesoamerica, where jungle vines coil around forgotten pyramids, and howler monkeys announce the dawn. This is the land of the Maya, a civilization that reached architectural, mathematical, and astronomical heights long before the cathedrals of Europe ever touched the sky. You step into Chichen Itza, a place where stone still hums with purpose. At its center rises the Temple of Kukulkan, a pyramid so mathematically precise it behaves like a living clock. Here's one major fact that still stuns modern architects. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, sunlight hits the pyramid staircase in such a way that it casts the illusion of a serpent slithering down the steps. The ancient Maya didn't just build, they choreographed light itself. The second fact, this pyramid is aligned with incredible astronomical accuracy. The structure's 4 sides contain a total of 365 steps, one for each day of the solar year. And at the top sits a temple dedicated to Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god, merging earth, sky, and the divine. But there's an eerie little secret tucked beneath all that symmetry. Archaeologists discovered that the pyramid was built on top of an older one, and below even that, a hidden cenote, a sacred water-filled cave. In Maya belief, cenotes were portals to the underworld. It's as if the temple wasn't just built for the gods above, but also for the spirits below. Historians still debate whether the equinox illusion was intentional. Whether the Maya truly designed it to summon the serpent of light. But if you stand there as the sun dips low and the shadow ripples down the steps, you won't doubt it. Some moments are too perfect to be accidents. Here's your obscure cultural tidbit. Ancient Maya ball games, played in nearby courts, weren't merely sport, they were sacred rituals, often symbolizing the battle between light and darkness. The ball, bouncing off slanted walls, represented the sun's journey through the underworld. You can almost hear it, the echo of stone on rubber, the chant of the crowd, the deep drone of a conch shell announcing victory or sacrifice. The air around Chichen Itza feels thick with duality. Every carving, every symbol, every line of stone seems to whisper, life and death are not opposites, they're neighbors. As night falls, torches flicker to life around the temple. The jungle hums with unseen life. Frogs, cicadas, the occasional rustle of something ancient remembering its purpose. Above, the same stars that guided the Maya still shine, patient and bright. You realize then, every mysterious structure on earth is a message, some written in stone, some written in light. And the next one we visit was written in sound. The jungle fades, and in its place comes stillness, cool, echoing, almost sacred. You hear footsteps on marble, distant voices carrying through time, and the faint pluck of a lyre drifting across a lost city. Welcome to Delphi, Greece, once the spiritual heart of the ancient world and home to one of history's strangest and most revered mysteries, the Oracle. Delphi isn't a single building, but rather a complex carved into the slope of Mount Parnassus, overlooking a valley so breathtaking it seems painted by divine hands. Here, between olive groves and shining cliffs, people from every corner of the Greek world came seeking answers, from farmers wondering about harvests to kings weighing the price of war. They all came for the same reason, to hear the words of the Pythia, the priestess of Apollo. Here's your first major fact. The Pythia would sit on a tripod deep within the temple, inhaling vapors rising from a crack in the earth. The gases, likely a mix of ethylene and other hydrocarbons, induced a trance-like state. In this altered consciousness, she'd speak in riddles, her words later interpreted by priests. The second fact, Delphi's prophecies shaped real history. The oracle warned Croesus, king of Lydia, that if he went to war against Persia, he would destroy a great empire. He took that as good news. It wasn't. The empire destroyed was his own. Historians still debate whether the oracle's powers were spiritual, psychological, or chemical. But even now, if you stand where she once did, you can almost feel the breath of the mountain rising from beneath the stones. A soft, invisible reminder that the earth itself once spoke here. And for our obscure tidbit, ancient visitors were required to purify themselves before consulting the oracle. This involved bathing in a sacred spring and making offerings of honey cakes and laurel leaves. Honey, they believed, pleased the gods. Apparently, even deities have a sweet tooth. Delphi wasn't just a temple. It was an idea, a physical embodiment of humanity's longing for certainty in an uncertain world. And perhaps that's why it still captivates us. We've traded the oracle's laurel wreath for algorithms, But the questions we ask haven't changed. You stand at the edge of the ruins, wind brushing the olive trees, the sun fading into soft amber. The marble columns glow like ghosts of the past, and for a moment it feels as though the mountain itself is whispering, not in riddles, but in memories. Then, as the light fades, a new sound emerges, the distant pounding of hooves on desert rock. Thank you for joining me tonight. Hope you enjoyed the story. If you're not in a deep sleep right now, enjoy the peaceful fireplace background and drift into peace.